Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel with another video for you guys here today. And it has been quite some time since I've last uploaded an official video on the channel. I think the last one we did was Zeke signing with the Cowboys. But here I am. As you can see with the backdrop, as I've alluded to in community post, I am moving into my new house. So because of that, backdrop's going to be bare bones for at least the next two videos, and then hopefully by week 2 I will be in the house recording videos and doing all that stuff. So I appreciate your patience, everybody. Love everybody that's watching the videos, and your support has been fantastic. Now there are a couple housekeeping things that I have to do for the channel first before we move forward. So if you do want to just skip to the meat and potatoes of me talking about the 53-man roster for 2024 and my expectations for this upcoming year, you can go ahead and skip to the timestamp on screen, or you can go into the chapters down below and skip this next part. Now getting into these housekeeping items, the number one thing I want to talk about is channel engagement before anything else. With how long I've been gone, people think I'm dead probably. And if you're watching this knowing that I am alive and well, great. But all jokes aside, I've been gone for so long, I don't know how the algorithm's going to take my channel kindly or not. So if you could do me a favor as a viewer and hit the like button, comment down below what you think about the Cowboys roster as it is now with the 53-man roster finalized, and your thoughts about the season, things of that note, that would be awesome. That's something I want to get going again, because I don't know how the channel is going to look like in the YouTube algorithm. So there's that. Number 2 is those that are watching and are not subscribing. It's not a big deal for me, but it's just something to note, because I've been seeing over 97.5% of viewers that watch the channel are not subscribed. So if you're liking what you're seeing and you keep coming back, I think you should subscribe, and we're getting close to 13K, so if you could do that, that'd be awesome. And also hit the notification bell when you do subscribe so you don't miss out on content and when I come back from long breaks. And then finally, we have ourselves something new for this season and moving forward as I pull it up on my end. It is the Callers Hotline. As you can see, this is going to be something implemented as we react to the games or before the games are played, depending on how much time I have. I know I have more time than enough when I get to the new house and get all situated to upload consistently, as opposed to just doing the 1 to 2 videos and moving stuff in between. So if you call the number 214-856-0457, it will go to a voicemail box where you leave a short message with your thoughts and opinions on what's going on with the Cowboys, and you might have a chance to have it played on an upcoming video or something to that effect. That way you guys can interact with me even further than just leaving a comment on a video. It'd be great to hear your guys' voices, where you're calling from, things of that note. So that's going to be new for the channel for 2024 and beyond. That is going to be sick, and I hope you guys participate in that as well. And I'll bring out notifications of that, and also you will see that in the description box and the pinned comment for those hotlines. So if you want to call in, you can, and you're like, oh, what's the number again? I don't know, but it is what it is. So I believe that covers everything. And I mean, the other thing that I have that I'm not super hard pressed about is if you want to continue to support me further, you can hit the join button and you can become a media member where you get extra perks and things like that. Helps me out with the channel and stuff like that. But whatever. Now that that's done, let's talk about some Cowboys football if you haven't skipped this part. And thank you for not skipping this part if you have not. So now I want to talk about this 53-man roster. We now know who is on this roster for 2024. And so we're going to go through each position group. I'm going to give my thoughts. And I would hope you guys give your thoughts too down in the comment section below, because I've been seeing throughout the Twitterverse and on YouTube all these mixed emotions on who made the roster, who's good, who's bad, all that stuff. I just want to know what you guys feel, because I'm trying to get more of an understanding of how Cowboys Nation feels. So let's start off with the quarterbacks. So right in front of me, I see here we got Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance. Now look, if you have been following this Trey Lance saga all along, since he became a Cowboy, you would know he was going to be on the 2024 roster no matter what, with how they guaranteed his contract, with the amount of resources they put into acquiring him, which was that 4th round pick they gave to San Francisco. They were going to make sure that he was on the roster. Now, do I agree with it? It made sense at the time with what was going on, but now that we've seen him play, it's clear, as much as I see there are things there to build upon, I just think that he's not fit to be here long term. Trey Lance needs to go to a team that's willing to be patient with him in terms of giving him regular season snaps, and Dallas is not the place for that. I'm looking at a team like Las Vegas, for example, that's trying to figure out the quarterback position. I wouldn't see a reason why after this season's over you throw some money at Trey Lance, see what he can do for you, and does he turn into something or is he nothing? Now, a lot of people think that he is nothing, and I kind of lean that way because it looks like that he's just not grasping the quarterback position at the NFL level as people thought he would. And I think for those that believe that he would supplant Dak Prescott, that isn't going to happen. He's just not there. I would say that in terms of the frame and the athleticism, sure, I think you got something there, but at playing the quarterback position, no. So, I'm sorry, Trey, and Jerry, whatever the hell you were trying to do to get leverage back for the Dak deal, did not work. So go pay Dak Prescott. I'm not going to worry about getting another quarterback for another 4 years or at minimum 3, and let's just go from there. The team is built to win now, no point. But I think Trey Lance did do himself some solid favors to make him a plausible candidate to be QB2, but I think Cooper Rush still holds that down because he's able to run the offense as they want to. Moving on to the running back position, we have Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and Hunter Lipke. And yes, I'm including the fullback in that particular position group. And to me, it's just like, it's okay. It's not terrible, but you could do better. I think the main thing is that as Ezekiel Elliott ages, he's not going to be the same guy that he once was. And I'm not saying he has to rush for 1,500 yards and score 30 touchdowns. For me, if Ezekiel Elliott can get somewhere between 600 to 800 yards, score between, knowing how they're probably going to use him in goal line situations, 4 to 10 touchdowns, and if he catches some passes and does well in pass protection, awesome. That's all I'm asking for. Rico Dowdle, I'm kind of looking at him as running back 1, the way that how he ran last year and what he can do in the passing game for you. Problem is he can't stay healthy. I hope that for him, if he is running back 2, you're getting some solid production out of him. And then Deuce Vaughn, I'm hoping he takes a step forward. I'm hoping he becomes this like Darren Sproles type player, that you get that kind of production out of him. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to use him, but you hope they do. And then Hunter Lipke's a fullback. Just use the fullback more. I don't know. But I'm not really feeling it with this running back position. I'm not trying to hate on what they have there. It's just, you know, you could do better, and I think they could have done better if they didn't trade some picks away, like one for Trey Lance. You could have had some other running back, just saying. But it's whatever. It's okay. Moving on to wide receiver, we have CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Cavante Turpin, and Ryan Flournoy. Not shocked by that in the slightest. I think that's a really solid group for you, especially with you now paying, as of this recording, CeeDee Lamb. You have him as wide receiver 1, Brandon Cooks wide receiver 2, Jalen Tolbert wide receiver 3. I really liked what I saw from Ryan Flournoy in the preseason, and I think that he's a wide receiver 4 or 5 at this point. But again, I think the main thing is that right now you're hoping that you get good production out of Lamb, Cooks, and Tolbert as your top 3, and then when those other guys come in, they step up for you. And so We're kind of hoping for another all-pro year from CeeDee Lamb. That's what I'm expecting. Brandon Cooks, I think, will make a better presence and contribution to start this year than he did last year, because him and Dak are starting to get going in terms of their chemistry. And then Jalen Tolbert, you kind of saw glimpses of him being a really good wide receiver 3. So I like what I'm seeing from the wide receiver core. Moving on to tight end, you have Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, John Stevens Jr., a guy that I was really high on last year, and Brevin Spann Ford. Peyton Hendershot is going to the Chiefs because we made a trade. We get a conditional 7th round pick. He has to be on the roster for a certain amount of games. We get the 7th round pick in return, which is better than just outright releasing him. Now, when we look at how the room's constructed, we understand that Jake Ferguson's tight end 1, and he's developing into a fantastic tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. The other part of it, too, is that when you look at what they did when they drafted Luke Schoonmaker, I said it in Twitter Spaces and on the channel, this was a shot at Peyton Hendershot. He was not cutting it at tight end 2, and I am not trying to sit here and act like Luke Schoonmaker is amazing. He's okay. And especially when he's available, that's the other thing. But Peyton Hendershot was not a good backup tight end in retrospect. When you look at 2022, when you had a guy like Dalton Schultz, and then you have a guy behind him like a Jake Ferguson, that's a good 1-2 punch. That's what you need. And that's what the Cowboys are going to need out of both Schoonmaker and Ferguson. And the problem is that you're not getting that with Ferguson and Hendershot. You didn't get that last year. So you also run into the fact that John Stevens Jr. would have probably kicked Peyton Hendershot off the roster if he didn't tear his ACL last year. So I apologize to the Hendershot hive. He just wasn't cutting it here in Dallas. And the one thing I will say about Luke Schoonmaker is this dude, he needs to stay healthy and just be a solid backup tight end. That's all I'm asking. I hate the fact they used a lot of draft capital in terms of the value of the pick to get him, but I don't know what else to say other than just please be good. So moving on to the offensive line. We have 10 guys here. Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele, presumably the starting offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys this season. For depth, TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, Asim Richards, Matt Waletzko, and Chuma Edoga. Now, I understand that Chuma Edoga's hurt, but he will come back at some point. I really like what I'm seeing with the Cowboys. You have 2 young guys replacing holes on the offensive line, and I think they have a whole lot of potential. If these guys can be something at a Pro Bowl level type of player, this Cowboys offensive line is set for at least the next 10 years. Zach Martin, even if he retires after this year, you still have control over TJ Bass. At right tackle, you still have control over Terrence Steele. You're hoping he returns to form. I'm not asking him to be that all-pro guy, even though I would very much so appreciate that. I'm just asking for a good right tackle. That is it. And I think that the Cowboys have also solid depth alongside that. Brock Hoffman's a really good backup center. TJ Bass, a guy that should be a starter in this league. Asim Richards coming into his own. Matt Waletzko, Chuma Edoga. It is what it is. But that is what your offense is looking like this year. I really like what I'm seeing with how they're trying to build this team on the offensive side of the ball. And I think as long as Guyton and Cooper Beebe continued their development as young offensive linemen, I think the Cowboys got themselves a good situation going for them, not only now, but long term. Moving over to defense, we start over with the defensive line. DeMarcus Lawrence, Osa Okedizua, Mozzie Smith, Micah Parsons, Marshawn Nealand, Jordan Phillips, Linval Joseph, Chauncey Golston, and Tyrus Wheat. A couple of these acquisitions the Cowboys have made, notably with Linval Joseph and Jordan Phillips in that D-tackle room. I really like what they're doing and adding the bodies there for depth purposes. One of the things that I was really looking forward to this NFL season, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, was Sam Williams. Unfortunately, he's out for the whole year. and we were hoping that Mike Zimmer can really turn him into a really damn good player. You saw the glimpses of what he could be. Fortunately, we're not sure how this injury is going to impact him in 2024, but we'll see him next year. And then again, just kind of going over this list again of who is on the defensive side of the ball on the defensive line. It is interesting that they point out that Michael Parsons is a part of the defensive line, even though I would kind of think he's more of a, outside linebacker, and he has that dual capability, but it is what it is. I think that, when you look at who's starting, you kind of hope that Mozzie Smith can become something other than a role player. And considering you spent a first-round pick on him, you're hoping he continues to grow. And then you just look at D-Law, you look at Osa, who's in a contract year, and Marshawn Nealand, who I think can supplant the lost production of Sam Williams. Like what I see here. A lot of potential with some of these guys here, but good group. Moving over to linebacker, Eric Kendricks, Damone Clark, DeMarvion Overshown, Maris Leafau, and Buddy Johnson. Got yourself a solid group there of guys with some size at the linebacker position, and you're not going to do this hybrid crap between the safeties and the linebackers and all that other stuff. No, straight up linebackers, and I think that is exactly what we needed. And I think with Eric Kendricks being in the room, you see DeMarvion Overshown is back, and it doesn't look like the injury is hampering him as bad as people thought it could be, because you know how these ACLs can be. I think that's good stuff. And seeing how Marist was looking in the drills and as well as some of the preseason games, practice and the preseason are one thing, but the regular season's a whole different animal. So the key word for plenty of these young players, especially at these particular position groups, is potential. If these dudes don't hit, the Cowboys are screwed. If they do hit or are solid, they're going to be okay. And I think that's really the main thing that we've been doing year in and year out, is hoping these young guys can step up, because we don't do anything in free agency to mitigate these issues. And so if these young guys step up, awesome. If not, it is what it is. So moving over to the cornerback room. We know that DaRon Bland's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, but we got Trevon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Israel Mukuamu, and Andrew Booth, who they traded Nahshon Wright for. This is a pretty... after you get outside of Trevon Diggs, Jordan Lewis is a solid corner there, and you're kind of hoping that a young guy like Kalen Carson can step up, and Israel Mukuamu, if he's playing corner, we've seen how well he can play there, and Andrew Booth can step up, but to me, you're looking at this room and you're hoping DaRon Bland can get back as soon as he can. I'm not saying they're screwed. I'm not saying they're bad. I think the main thing is that we don't know how Trevon Diggs is going to look post ACL injury. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm not saying he's going to be trash. My main thing is that we do not know what we're dealing with. And so if he comes back to form, I think the Cowboys will be just fine. And this is also part of why I wanted them to bring back Stephon Gilmore, was because in the event that Diggs wasn't recovering well or you have an injury, it is what it is. And it's not like you're going to put too much into multiple years of a guy that's 34 years old, but I can understand why they didn't bring him back. But again, some of these dudes, you know who they are. Other dudes, you're hoping they can be something. Finally, we close with safety. Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Yanway Thomas, and Marquise Bell. A good group right there. I think as long as Donovan Wilson can stay healthy, he's a thumper. He's someone that can be a tone setter on defense. Malik Hooker, I need to see him step up this year. And Marquise Bell and Yanway Thomas, these young guys, as long as they keep going, I think they'll be fine. Finally, getting to the specialists, it's not going to be too crazy. Brian Anger, Brandon Aubrey, Trent Sieg, and CJ Goodwin. Cool. Overall, I think that this is a good team overall. Just because I see that on paper does not change how I have certain expectations for this team, which we're going to get into next. But as we take a small pause here, if you can leave your comments down below how you feel about the roster, that'd be great. And I'm really curious to see what you guys say, because to me it's just like another year where they have a good roster, but what can they do at the end of the tunnel, basically. I'm not saying I'm not going to enjoy, being in a situation where, like, oh, I'm watching the Cowboys and I'm not having fun watching them, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm going to enjoy watching Cowboys games this year. That's not going to change. But my expectation is not going to change either in what I want to see from them. It's kind of one of those things where I'm not going to get my hopes up unless they prove me otherwise, if that gets the point across. So there we go. Let's go ahead and get into the expectations and close this thing out. Now, when we talk about what the expectations should be for this particular Cowboys team in 2024, I completely understand why many Cowboys fans are not hyped about this upcoming year. And on top of that, why many Cowboys fans are not optimistic for how this season is going to pan out. Last year, whether you want to admit it or not, or you've moved on from it, is going to be a huge cloud that hangs over this team. You being the second seed in NFL history to not make it to the division round of the playoffs. I understand that the format did change a couple years ago, but still the point stands is that's embarrassing, man. And it wasn't like you lost a close game. You got your ass kicked handedly against the Green Bay Packers team that, to be honest with you, had no reason to go in there and do what they did. Now, look, I apologize that I'm bringing 2023 up again because I know a lot of Cowboys fans just want to move on, see what happens in 2024, and move on from there. But it's part of how I'm evaluating this team for 2024, is that you have this huge cloud that has grown over the Cowboys organization, and that cloud involves them being looked at as a playoff choking organization that only does good in the regular season, especially over the past 30 years. And considering they've been exposed to playoff football for 3 straight years, and it's been the same results just in different rounds and in different flavors, the fact is that cloud ain't going away until you win a championship. Now, it could dissipate a bit if you do make it to the NFC title game or even make it to the Super Bowl and lose, but that ain't going to change until you do something different with results in the postseason. Look, I think this team's going to do fine in the regular season. I have no quarrels with that. My only problem is that I don't know what they're going to look like in the postseason, because the postseason is based off of matchups and how you attack them. Unfortunately, the Cowboys have not done well with these matchups. We've seen that in 2022 was probably the closest they've gotten to the NFC title game in the sense of their defense played well, but offensively you just weren't there. I understand Pollard got injured, but my thing is that I'm looking at this year, and I hate to say it, but it's true, and just how I'm feeling. I'm going to just be honest with you guys. I'm just not excited for 2024 and what I'm expecting from this Cowboys team. And I know that many people don't want to hear that or think I'm just being too much of a Debbie Downer, but guys, I'm not saying that the team is going to suck. I'm just saying don't be shocked if the results are the same, because, there are people that are on here and throughout social media, they're trying to hype this team up like it's something special, but it ain't. It's just, oh, we're adding these dudes, and oh my god, this is going to be so great for the Cowboys and all this other stuff, like it's going to take them over. Like, what are we doing, man? But I digress. What I want to do now is take a look at the 2024 Dallas Cowboys regular season schedule and give you my expectations for how I feel the team will do with this regular season, and then just see where it goes from there. So starting things off with the NFC East, and given with how these teams are constructed, I do think that the Cowboys should be able to beat the Giants twice. They aren't moving in the right direction. It really feels like they're stagnating when it comes to roster building, and it feels like they've gotten worse from last year. Then moving on to the Washington Commanders. I do think that Washington has gotten better, and I think that they have a quarterback they can really build around, especially if he's given the proper tools around him, which I think they have been able to do a bit of that. Now, a side note, I've always said that Washington was a quarterback away from being really good, and let's just see how things go from here. But I think, given with how they're built, I think that they'll split with the Cowboys this year. Then moving on to Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is a really good team. Just like last year, I think the Cowboys and Eagles will split. So that puts them at a 4-2 record already inside the NFC East. You're giving me a barometer for how well I think they can do and what's the worst case scenario. I think worst case they'll finish 3-3. Best case they finish 5-1. Now, moving over to outside of the NFC East on the away games, and it's going to be going in order from week 1 to all the way to week 18. We have the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Carolina Panthers. Going in that particular order, starting off with Cleveland in Week 1, I don't think the Cowboys are going to win this game, and it has to deal with the fact that historically they have not done well in Week 1. And outside of them playing the New York Giants last year on Sunday Night Football, they have lost every other game against other opponents since then. Hence why I'm going this route of saying that they're going to lose to Cleveland. Moving on to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is kind of in a similar vein to Cleveland, which is they're very good defensively, but offensively they are challenged. I think that the Cowboys should be able to take care of business against Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be shocked if they have Fitz up there. They usually do historically, but we'll see what happens there. But I think that they should be able to beat Pittsburgh. Moving on to San Francisco. Until otherwise noted, this Cowboys team is going to just keep getting pantsed by this 49ers team, so that's going to be a loss for me. Moving on to Atlanta, I think that Atlanta is a sneaky good team this year. I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys saw them in the playoffs this upcoming season. But I think this is going to be a game where you look at what happens with the Cowboys historically. They always have a game that you think they shouldn't win, and they do. And then they have a game where they should win, and they don't win that. We saw that last year, I think a few times. So to me, I think this is the game where they're not supposed to win it, but they do, because I think Atlanta's going to be really good. And they have had their number of recent, but we'll see what happens from there. Finally, we have the Carolina Panthers. They're in total shambles. I don't know what the hell's going on there. I wouldn't be shocked if this is like the what the hell are you doing game and you lose them. But no, I think they'll be fine. So with that, going through all the road games now, we have the Cowboys at 7-4 with NFC East play and the away games. Now we have the remaining home games. Starting off with the following in Week 2 and then going down the list. You have the Saints coming to town, the Ravens coming to town, Detroit coming back. You have Houston, the Bengals, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looking at these games, I think they should be able to beat the Saints. I think that they are going to lose against the Ravens. The Cowboys have not played well against the Ravens historically. They've only beaten them once. Ironically, it was Dak Prescott who beat them. But aside from that, I think that that would be a fun game, no less. You go to Detroit versus Dallas, and I think that the Cowboys will win that game. They have beaten the Lions, I think, every single game since 2013, if I recall. Like that was the one game where Matthew Stafford had the fake spike that, we blew that game. I think that's the last time they've beaten us, if I recall. But right now in the Dak Prescott era, he's done very well against Detroit. We go to Houston. I think that the Cowboys should be able to beat the Houston Texans, but I do believe that they will get a loss there. I think that they are due for a loss at home, and that would be one of them. Then you move to Bengals at Cowboys. I think the Cowboys should be able to win that game. They have done well against the Bengals over the past couple of years. And then Tampa Bay versus Dallas. I think that the Cowboys will win that game. We add those games up, and that puts the Cowboys at an 11-6 record, where they are 9-3 in the conference, 4-2 in division play, 7-2 at home, where they have historically done well, and 4-4 on the road. So that is some interesting stuff there. And if we're talking about where this team is at, that's kind of where I'm thinking this team is at. They are an 11-6 to 12-5 team, depending on how things go their way. Now the question is does 11-6 give you the NFC East? And I think it can, but it just comes down to how the other teams perform. And I think a lot of us just don't care at this point where we're positioned in the playoffs, because what matters is how you perform. And so at 11-6, that should get you between a 5 and 6 seed. I wouldn't be shocked if that would give the Cowboys like a 5th seed at minimum. I think at best that would give them like a 3 seed. And so my question would be at that point, okay, well, how far can they go? It depends on the matchups. I kind of alluded to earlier, I think that out of all the division winners, I think that the NFC South will be the 4th seed again. So if they, let's say, played the Falcons, who I think are the best team in that division, given with how they did things this offseason, I really do think that they could give the Cowboys a run for their money, but I think the Cowboys should be able to beat Atlanta. Should. And you kind of go from there. So, assumedly that you're the 5 seed, I would say that probably Philadelphia's 1 or 2 at 12 and 5 maybe, or who knows. And then can you beat them? Yeah, I think they can. But will they? Probably not. I just think what sucks for this Cowboys team is that they just run into the weirdest situations. Like, they find interesting ways to lose. And I'm sorry that I point it like that, but it just is what it is, guys. So, that's kind of how I'm thinking. That's where my thoughts are, is that they are a team that can win 10 to 12 games in this season. I think even if they win 9 games, they'll still make the playoffs. But the question is, can they go far? Probably not. And I hate to say that, but that's just how I'm thinking about this. And I don't want to give you guys a false sense of hope. And we're going to go through the year, and we're going to see how things progress through this team's interesting ride, considering that we don't know what's going to happen after this year. But we will see. We will see. Now, guys, thank you so much for your love and support. It's been a while since I have uploaded, so I wanted to give you more of a longer form video, but I'll try to break it up for you as best as I can with the limited time that I have and make it so that you're not just hearing me ramble about the Cowboys. But hey, you know, when you haven't talked about them for so long, you have a lot of thoughts and opinions going through your head, so that's just how it is here in Cowboy Land. But if you could do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, hit that notification bell, leave a comment down below, and share this with a friend or a family member. That would be awesome. I'm glad to be back talking about Cowboys football. So I will see you guys after week 1 and see if we come out with a win or loss in Cleveland. Alright, guys. Have a good one. Goodbye.